Hello judges, we are Team DSP UNC, and we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. North Carolina, how do you make a good place great? In North Carolina, we all have different experiences and opportunities that make every individual's experience very different from one others. So, to present, we wanted to talk a little bit about how our slogan and our campaign can speak to every single person's opportunity in North Carolina. Thus, we've come up with this slogan: fresh air, open arms. It's a flexible slogan that will reinforce North Carolina's brand and appeal to those both inside and outside North Carolina. First, we talk about North Carolina personality, very different from any other states. Second, North Carolina's assets. And thirdly, North Carolina's promise. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Lauren Gill.
Hello, today I'll be speaking about North Carolina's personality and how it will contribute to generating over $6.15 billion in revenue in the next 5 years in our campaign. When looking at North Carolina's personality, we felt it was critical to incorporate it into our slogan. We looked at data and found that the top 3 core values of North Carolina residents were hospitality, friendliness, and community. Additionally, we also found in another set of data that North Carolina's highest scoring character traits were agreeableness and conscientiousness, which came from Cambridge University's personality map. The culmination of the core values and the personality traits show that North Carolina is a very opening and inviting place, and we felt to incorporate that into our slogan with the open arms aspect. Additionally, we noted that North Carolina is an ever-changing state, most importantly demographically. We found that North Carolina is the 12th fastest growing state, and their core values reflect that the 3 least likely valued things were diversity, equality, and inclusiveness. It was important to us to incorporate and show that North Carolina is moving towards a different set of core values and being more inclusive. 92% of the net growth in population comes from people who are not white. Additionally, we looked at the demographics that were changing in the political spectrum and found that by the looks of these maps, North Carolina is not predominantly Republican like many stereotypes may show, and the demographics are constantly changing. In 2012, the Republicans made up 50% of the votes, and the Democrats made up 48%. So throughout these 18 years, things were truly changing, and our Fresh Air, Open Arms slogan celebrates that kind of diversity. Lastly, looking at the regional diversity of North Carolina, we saw that there were 3 core regions, which were the coastal plain, the mountain region, and the Piedmont region. The coastal plain makes up the beaches such as Outer Banks that draws tourism, as well as the historical sites. The Piedmont region consists of the more farming culture, as well as the blues-infused and bluegrass thriving music in that region. And the mountain region consists of the Blue Ridge Mountain ranges and the plethora of hiking opportunities there. Next, we have Lisa Myers, who will talk about North Carolina's assets.
It's no secret that North Carolina has beautiful and diverse natural assets that are unique to the state. We have the mountain region in the west and the coastal region to the right. But what unifies all of these aspects in our slogan is the fresh air. It is shown that many people associate North Carolina with nature. As evidenced by the word cloud, the most prevalent terms that arise when people are asked to respond to that is mountains and beaches. So therefore, the brand must be built heavily on the strong image of North Carolina as a natural haven. Here we have a few key words or image strengths that describe North Carolina, and the ones that are circled heavily relate back to nature. Focusing on these areas will leverage North Carolina's current tourism strengths. The graph here shows that the tourism industry is growing steadily, and that is heavily related to the mountains and the beaches. Here we have outlined a few activities that are very popular in North Carolina and that are a main economic drive for the tourism industry, and they all, in one way or another, also relate back to the mountains or the beach and the fresh air that's in those regions.
The final component of the North Carolina brand is the North Carolina Promise. Now, this promise extends to multiple different parties throughout the state. The first one that I'd like to speak to is the promise to the residential community. North Carolina's cost of living is well below average, and as you can see from the diagram to my right, the cost of living index in each of the major cities throughout the state is below 100, so it's below average. And what that means for the people of North Carolina is that they have to spend less on their day-to-day expenses, making life a lot easier for them. The same goes for the health expenses and hospital expenditures for North Carolinians. It's well below the national average as well. And same goes for that. The less people have to spend on those expenses, the less they have to worry, and they can have a peace of mind as they continue to live in our great state. North Carolina is also fulfilling its promise to educate the people of the great state of North Carolina. The funding per student that goes to our research universities is third in the nation, and this really shows the state's commitment to educating its people so that they can have opportunities to succeed later on in life once they get their degree. Another party that the state of North Carolina is catering to, and that our slogan captures, is the great business climate of North Carolina. Our state is ranked 4th best in business by Forbes. We also have the #3 workforce according to CNBC, and we have the 1st lowest cost of doing business according to Ernst & Young. These 3 rankings combined really go to show the type of business climate we have here in North Carolina and the culture of ease of business and employment that we're trying to foster here. And this sort of culture also extends to the innovation and progress that our great state is helping to encourage. The first arena that we're doing this in is through research universities. The University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Duke University, Wake Forest University, and North Carolina State University are all research universities at the top of their class, doing their best to innovate and generate new technologies and push the envelope and create innovations that really extend beyond the state of North Carolina to the rest of the United States and even the rest of the world. Additionally, the business innovations that are taking place in the state of North Carolina are pretty revolutionary as well. A lot of businesses, including Bank of America, Lowe's, BB&T, Red Hat, and other technology firms, are all headquartered or have offices in our great state of North Carolina, specifically in Research Triangle Park. And what these companies are doing is they're also innovating, constantly trying to push the envelope and really make advancements that are going to be revolutionary and impactful for our entire world. And at the same time, they're also employing a great number of North Carolinians and contributing to that culture of employment and innovation, which balances out throughout our state. And now I'd like to turn it over to John to talk about the financial impact of our recommendations.
In order to have success, it's necessary for any country, state, company, or organization to have economic success. In order to look at that, we looked at how our campaign would increase revenue based on the last couple years. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, from 2000 to 2010, North Carolina's population has grown 18.5%. Annualized, that's 1.85%. But since 2010 to 2013, that number has jumped from 1.85% per year to 3.3% per year. When we looked at this, we found it interesting that the revenue increase for tourism jumped from 3.27% per year from 2000 to 2009 to over 7% from 2010 to 2013. Thus, we looked into how this would factor into a slogan and a campaign that would greatly impact North Carolina's tourism revenue. Thus, based on non-discounted cash flows, we figured an increase $6.49 billion in revenues. This doesn't have anything to do with the already projected revenues for the next 5 years. This is solely the incremental revenues. Discounted, based on the 10-year Treasury note, this goes down to $6.15 billion. Thus, we believe that our campaign and our slogan will greatly increase the revenues in North Carolina over the next 5 years because of the following reasons. Fresh air, open arms. This campaign really includes both in-state and out-of-state residents. That's because we include 3 important factors. First is North Carolina personality, next is North Carolina assets, and lastly, we include North Carolina promise. When we talk about North Carolina personality, as was mentioned before, we really want to touch on the hospitability and friendliness that people think of when they think of North Carolina, and also the diversity. As was mentioned, over 92% of our population growth is diverse. Next is assets. From mountain to coast, people all over the world, all over the country, and all over the state come to North Carolina to look for fun and enjoyment through a variety of different activities and places to go. Last is North Carolina promise. North Carolina has an array of different ways to be involved and to financially succeed, from low-cost housing to low-cost education, additionally to low-cost healthcare. North Carolina has a lot of promise and a lot of different ways that individuals and families can be involved and successfully thrive in this state. So again, we want to say to you, fresh air, open arms.